Hi, this is Vince, AutoRestorationVideos.com. With all my videos, you want to make sure you check out my website and click on my business Facebook page. On there, you'll be much more information about this video, some regular photos that you could check out and dialogue about how this video was made and the problems we encountered, stuff like that. Now this video is going to entail tie rod ends. Alright, now I'm working on an 82 Porsche 911 with about 123,000 miles on it. Now when I drove this car, it had a tendency to wander a little bit, and this kind of car should not wander, not with all the positive caster that's supposed to be on this car, which I doubt is actually even on it. Alright, you should be able to just let go of this wheel and this car should go straight. Well, this car wasn't doing it. Alright, this car, you really had to fight to keep this thing on the road. And so, as I'm taking this apart, checking different things out, and I find out, I'm looking at the tie rod end, man, the end is really loose. Alright, now, how much it costs to replace that end, you could buy yourself a turbo tie rod kit, let's say. Drop the washer there. This is the way it looks. Now I'm going to show you this set up on underneath the car here, and they just have, it looks like a shock with a bolt going through, and you're going to see all the play in that. Alright, I mean, this thing goes like this, it goes like that, it goes back and forth like this. It's just insane of the design. That's why I'm telling you guys, the first thing you do to one of these Porsches is replace that tie rod end, one of these turbo tie rod ends. Alright, this is like a ball joint on here instead of a big crazy joint like they got on that thing. It's like something from the Flintstones. Well, I'm going to go ahead and reposition this camera. Not only when you get this, you get the boot too, and you get a big spacer washer that goes behind it, and they even give you a cotter pin too. But don't be looking for any directions. You probably won't get them. You can get them here though. Watch this video. Now check out the play in this joint. You see that? There's just a big rubber bushing back here. It's like the top of a shock tower. I mean, the end of a shock absorber mounting point. Check this. She even springs back. That's shot too. See, this is a really, really bad design. How do you expect this car ever to go straight if you have all you have all this play in this bad boy? This is just terrible. Look at that. Now you can see what your front end is doing. Why you got, oh, it's going this way, go left, go right, go left. No, it's going the other way. Now they say this is just supposed to twist off. Alright, just by turning this. In the book, in the book, yeah, right, in the book, they show getting a screwdriver and putting this in here and turning it. I don't know how the hell they did that because this big bar is in the way. So I'm going to get a regular adjustable wrench, put it on here, and just turn this thing, and we're going to see if she comes off. Adjust it out a little bit. So much for adjustable wrenches, huh? Now we just broke the wrench loose. I meant to wrench our nut. We don't want to mess with that because we want to keep our adjustment the same I see there's a slight indentation right here in the middle. I guess this is supposed to go on it. Close it down a little more. Keep going the wrong way. Oh, I don't want to move it. I'm moving the tie rod. Ah, she's not budging there. Be right back. I got it to move about a ½ inch with my adjustable wrench by putting all my might behind it. But there's a spring on this rubber boot that we might want to get off before we go any further. I'm going to use this little hook I have to grab that little spring that goes behind here that you can hardly even see. There must be another way to do this. I'm going to have to get a little screwdriver and stick it in there when I pull it up. I stuck a screwdriver, I picked it up and I stuck this screwdriver in behind it. Now all I got to do is try to roll it forward and get that spring off. It's off. Now we just got to try to pry it back, even though we're going to replace this. We don't want this thing to get all twisted up. Well, I just punched a hole in it, so it's a good thing we got a replacement one. So I'm going to go ahead and try to remove this a little more. Oh, this is really, really hard. And what I'm doing is twisting, making my tie rod measurement change. And that's the last thing I want to do. I mean, this is taking a lot of strength. I wonder if I'm going the right way. I feel like I'm going to snap it, to tell you the truth. Well, I'm going to keep on going. I can keep twisting, and if something happens, we'll show it. Well, the other end is getting twisted loose, too, over here, this tie rod. And I think if I keep going, I'm going to lose my whole measurement here, about from the length of this tie rod. So I'm going to go ahead and start counting my threads and mark this down on a piece of paper, so when I put the new one back in, I'll know where to put it. I'm still not sure which direction I'm supposed to be turning this in. Well, I've been working on this about 10 minutes now, and I got about 6 or 7 turns out of it. And you would think that it would be getting looser. It is a little bit, but not much. We'll just keep struggling along here. Finally, I got it to a point where you could twist it with your hand. I don't believe it. Well, I got to get the other end of this boot off. Same little spring retainer, I guess. Well, I got to tell you guys, I finally got it off. And that took considerable force to get off. I had my fingers crossed the whole way, thinking maybe I was going to snap something in there. But once I got it like 3/4 of the way out, I guess, all of a sudden, it just started coming straight out. So, now, the other thing was getting that back spring. That spring that holds down the boot in the back over here. Now that was a trick too. You're laying under the car, all the dirt is falling in your eyes and everything. Before you start a project like this, you should really steam the undercarriage of the car. That would be a good idea. Make a note of that, self. Okay, now we have the new one. Except, you got to put this boot onto this tie rod end. I was thinking that maybe we could just, put it on the other way, but you can't really get this big end through this little tiny end that's over here. Alright? It's going to be a struggle. So, ideally that would be great, but it's just too much to stretch this thing. I don't even know how, when I pull this thing all the way back, how I'm going to catch it over this, because that's a lot of stretching to do for this thing. I know there's a joke in there, but I'm not touching it. So I'm going to try to put it in through this way and try to, maybe I could bend it around the tie rod end, around that bolt. I got the bolt through, the stud. Well, I can see this is going to be another project here. I'm going to have to work with this one. You see a little bit. Actually, might not be as bad as I thought. On second thought, maybe it will. I just got a little more ways to go. You can see it coming out. Yeah, I was able to just roll it back and over. But I don't know why they didn't put a grease fitting in the bottom of this thing. I mean, they didn't even put enough grease in here when he made it at the factory. That's poor. That's really poor, man. Boy. Now there's a spring around here that it looks like it's a spring. And it goes around this little rubber boot. I might be able to take this little spring off here and get a needle grease fitting and put it in between here and fill this thing up. I might do that, because this is crazy. It's almost like they even forgot to put grease in here at all. This is really bad. This thing must have been made in China or something. Okay guys, I got to put a washer around this thing. Then I have to measure the length. I should have measured it before I put this boot on. But I think I'll be able to get it. Okay, let me get out my measuring tape now. I got to measure the old tie rod to make sure that this one is the same. And a big spacer goes over here, spacer washer. It's almost like 1/4 of an inch thick before we mount it over there onto our rack. Well, it looks pretty close to me. But don't forget now, this one here, the original one, is all twisted and the rubber's all mangled on this, on the inside of this little shock tower here. So we take it right about from here to here. So you got the spacer on this. I mean, we're in the ballpark. Now, before you put this on, they tell you to put some Loctite on here. But we just about get it off the way it was before. I'm going to see how she threads on. And if it threads on the same way that thing threaded off, we're not going to need any Loctite. Let me just check it out. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because remember when I took the old one off, I got about 3/4 of the way out. Then it just, I could turn it by hand. So I really can't tell, but it can't hurt. I'm going to get some Loctite and put it on this bad boy. And they tell you to make sure you check the length to make sure she doesn't bottom out. Well, this one here that I'm putting on is almost 1/4 of an inch shorter than that one. So there's no way in the world this thing's going to bottom out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on and tighten it up. I got to find some kind of wrench to fit this thing because you're going to have to tighten it up right from here. And that's about 1 1/8 or something. I still think in regular non-metric terms. Now somehow I managed to get the boot on. All I got to do now is get that spring into that lip. And then I'll have it made. I was only able to tighten up that big nut with a vice grip. I couldn't find a wrench to fit it. I'm sure that's some kind of special Porsche part, which I do not have. Maybe in a couple days I'll go somewhere and see if I can find a wrench that could even possibly fit that. The idea is to get this underneath the spring, pull it out, then drop it in this groove. Right. I only have 2 hands, and I'm hand holding this camera in case you can't tell. Well, I'm going to go ahead and see what happens here. I got to put this camera down. We'll see you in a couple seconds. Between rolling this spring over that lip with my finger and using a screwdriver to push it over while holding it out a little bit, it looks like I got it, and I can't believe it. Almost finished. The only problem is, except for having almost no grease in this, and not even getting a retaining spring for this in the kit, it's finished. I know, that's messed up. They didn't even give me the retaining spring for this. I don't know where I'm going to find one. Well, I'm going to have to go on the web, check it out, and see what I can come up with. Now, I managed to get the boot over this rubber bushing that was in the front. There's like a little, looks like a pulley, almost. And that was rough. So what I did is I got it all the way back with my finger as far as I could go. And then I got the screwdriver and I just got it and started doing it one step at a time. Pulling it over, pulling it over. Then when I got up to here, I went like this until I got it in. Then I noticed that I didn't have the little spring like it was on the back. I used the one on the back, but on my old boot, the spring on the front and the back was the same size. So they told me just to use wire ties. So I'm going to go ahead and tie these wire ties around there. And besides putting the grease in the boot, that's it. This is Vince from Auto Restoration Videos. Don't forget, check out my website. Click on my Facebook link to see more information and see some of the new projects I'm working on. Thanks a lot. Now I loosened up this retaining ring that goes over the boot. And it has something called a grease needle here. Alright, it's got a grease fitting up here. I'm going to slide this down in along the edge here. Just like so. And get my grease gun and grease this puppy up. Then I'm going to put this ring back on. That needs more grease, I'm sorry.